you so much for joining. Isabel is running a little bit late today, but she is going to be joining me as soon as she can. We're going to be talking today about the Purina update, and I say Purina not because I'm trying to call out a specific brand. If you watched Dr. Judy's video last week, thank you guys so much for joining. The reason that Purina was named first and primary and is still at the top of the list is because that is where so many of the consumer complaints are coming from. And I know we will say this probably many times today, but just to reiterate to everyone that we are aware that no recalls have been issued yet. Recalls take time, and they take the FDA intervening to tell, generally speaking, to tell, hello, thank you so much for joining. Generally, especially with these larger pet food companies, it takes the FDA investigating and intervening and requiring a recall for a recall to happen. So I hope you guys can hear me okay. My shirt collar is like not allowing me to put my microphone up really high. So so hopefully Isabel will be able to join us soon. But what we're going to do today is kind of do a little bit of an update, what to do now, what to do next, how to move forward. And when Isabel does get a chance to join in, we're going to be talking a little bit about just the reality of the pet food industry that a lot of pet parents are not familiar with. Whether that be ingredient sourcing, ingredient quality, there's just so many things that it's important for us as pet parents to have some understanding of. And granted, this is what I do all day, every day, so you may not be like as completely on top of it. I get that. Like we have lives, right? We live, we have families, we have 9-to-5 jobs. We're just trying to do the best we can for our pets, which is why it is so important when we see as many consumer complaints as we are seeing now, that we take it seriously and we say, you know what? Yes, it's true. There hasn't been any a recall issued as of yet. However, it's better to be safe than sorry. Let's be proactive, because, who wants to be spending thousands of dollars at the veterinarian's office because of brand loyalty or there's so many different reasons why people may decide to stay with a brand with what they're feeding. One of the primary reasons, and I just want to get this off out of the way at the top, is that it can be scary, especially with what we have been told for so many years, that we should find a food and stick with it, that if we change food, it's going to cause GI upset. These are fallacies. This is not true. In fact, even if you are feeding kibble, you're going to continue feeding kibble because that is what fits with your lifestyle at the moment. That is what it is. We can, one, do things to boost the bowl, but two, it is still really important to rotate brands, proteins, at least every 3 months. Primarily so we don't create sensitivities on down the road. So we're just, hopefully what we're doing right now is getting the word out to people that there are pet foods that consumers are calling out and saying, hey, this is making my pet sick. So it is better to be safe now and stop feeding that food than to be sorry later when you wind up potentially at the vet's office with these, a really sick animal, huge vet bills. That's not what we want to do, right? So there are so many consumer complaints right now, and the best thing we can do, there are some veterinarians who would very much love for you to make a homemade diet. And if we can do that safely, whether that's balancing every meal or balancing over time, that's wonderful. If that is what you have the capacity to do, there are some really wonderful resources for that, including Dr. Judy Morgan's website. She has free recipes. She also has a list on her website, and I will post these links in my stories when we're done on today's live, a list of recommended foods that Dr. Judy recommends, and it very, very, very closely matches the list that I would have made myself. Ideally, we would prefer to feed foods from smaller companies with transparency that are letting us know where they're sourcing their ingredients from, that hopefully they're not using any synthetic vitamins and minerals to balance the diet, or if they are, they're not using what we call a premix or a vitamin and mineral pack, meaning that they're relying on the synthetic vitamins and minerals to completely make up the balance in the diet. And even though, getting notifications there, hopefully that didn't cut me out. But yeah, there are so many dogs and cats. That's also important to talk about, that this isn't just dogs, this is both dogs and cats that are being affected. Again, all consumer reports right now. And I can't reiterate enough how important it is to take these pet parents seriously and to not take chances with your own pet. You know, there are a lot of people who are saying, oh, you know, my dog eats XYZ and they're totally fine, everything's great. And you know what? I am thrilled that your dog is doing well right now. I would still rather that you not take the chance for something to go wrong with as many pet parents who are out here saying, look, no, this food is harming my pet. And it's multiple pets in households sometimes, and it's not just sick pets. There are a lot of sick pets. Some pets have sadly passed away, some very, very quickly. And I think that is just to do with the individual animal and where they were at to begin with, how well their immune system was performing to begin with, how, like, if their body was already overloaded with toxins to begin with. There's so many things, that contributing factors that could cause one animal to pass away really quickly, whereas another animal might get really sick and take longer for those symptoms to get really, really bad. And that's just an individual animal thing. So currently, I actually need to look up what the current let me look up if there are any updates on Dr. Judy's Instagram to the list of brands that are currently being, I can't get in. Maybe I can get on Facebook. Oops. No, I got it. Oh, there we go. But the reason, again, why Purina specifically was called out first is because of the sheer number of animals who were pet parents were reporting that their animals are very, very sick, and they were the common denominator was that they were eating some form of Purina food. A lot of the households, Purina was the only food they were feeding. So there is a lot of validity in what these pet parents are reporting. And again, recalls take time. That's what I wanted to pull up. So Susan Thixton, if you're not familiar with Susan Thixton, she runs the blog Truth About Pet Food. She is a consumer advocate in the pet food space. And she, wrong email. She put out a blog post recently in the last few days that I wanted to pull up because of course, Purina they issued a statement basically saying, we know nothing of this. The food is fine. Please continue to feed it. That's my paraphrasing of it, actually, just so we're all clear. So Susan Thixton put out a blog post, and again, I can put the link to this in my stories after we're done with the live today. But she was posting about the statement that Purina made, saying that these allegations are not true, according to Purina, and she also went back in the archives and said, well, let's see how Purina has handled this in the past. And I think that can be important for us to think about, especially if we're on the fence, whether that is being on the fence about stopping feeding of food or on the fence about sharing the information, because it is important that we share this information. If you or anyone you know has a pet that is sick and they feel that it is due to the food that they're eating, of course we have to rule out animals who have been sick with chronic issues, though the food could make it, there could be something else going on if we're feeding a food that is potentially tainted with something. If they've received vaccines recently, we want to be aware that there's also reactions that could be happening to vaccines. If they received chemical flea and tick medication recently, we want to be aware that that could also cause potential illness in an animal. But again, with as many consumer reports as are flooding in about foods making their dogs sick, if you or anyone you know has an animal who is sick and you do feel that it is related to the food, regardless of the brand, it doesn't have to just be Purina, because a lot of these pet food companies, especially the larger pet food companies and the pet food companies that are like midway trying to make their way into the larger pet food companies, they share a lot of the same suppliers. And we do not currently know exactly what it is that's causing the issue. That is still being looked into, and I'm sure as soon as we know, you'll know. But it is important that we look at what has happened in the past to help us make better decisions moving forward. So Susan Thixton's blog, how has Purina handled online rumors in the past? Starting in 2007, there were rumors of sick and dead pets linked to Purina's Wagon Train jerky treats, the chicken jerky. I definitely remember the big chicken jerky debacle. I don't know if you do. At the time, the FDA stated, since 2007, FDA has received reports of illnesses in pets associated with the consumption of jerky pet treats. As of December 31st, 2015, FDA has received approximately 5,200 complaints of illnesses associated with consumption of chicken, duck, or sweet potato jerky treats, many of which involve products imported from China, which produces much of the jerky pet treats on the market. The reports involve more than 6,200 dogs, 26 cats, 3 people, and include more than 1,140 canine deaths. Purina Wagon Train jerky treats were one of the products associated with pet illnesses and death. In 2012, Purina published a website called Chicken Jerky Dog Treats, the Facts. And that URL is chickenjerkyfacts.com, providing pet owners with myth and their fact. Information about chicken jerky treats. Purina's website told pet owners it was a myth that thousands of dogs have gotten sick or died from eating jerky treats. The Purina website also told pet owners it was a myth that the FDA advises pet owners not to feed chicken jerky treats. Actually, prior to Purina's chickenjerkyfacts.com website, the FDA had issued 2 warnings about the treats. In 2007, the FDA posted, "FDA cautions consumers about chicken jerky products for dogs," stating, "The Food and Drug Administration is cautioning consumers of a potential association between development of illness in dogs and the consumption of chicken jerky products, also described as chicken tenders, strips, or treats." The second warning came from the FDA in 2008, Preliminary Animal Health Notification, Chicken Jerky Products for Dogs. This warning stated, "The Food and Drug Administration, FDA, continues to caution consumers of a potential association between the development of illness in dogs and the consumption of chicken jerky products, also described as chicken tenders, strips, or treats." Finally, and I'm still reading Susan's blog, this is just such good information. Finally, in January 2013, many brands of jerky treats imported from China were removed from store shelves. So wait, I'm going to pause this for just 1 second, because this started in 2007, and finally in 2013, they're removing the products from shelves. That's 6 years. That is a really long time for dogs to be getting sick and dying for nothing to be done. So I'm going to go back to her blog. Finally, in January 2013, many brands of jerky treats imported from China were removed from store shelves. Testing by the New York Department of Agriculture found illegal antibiotics in Purina's Wagon Train and numerous other brands. Other jerky treats at the time, such as Milo's Kitchen, also implicated in pet illness and deaths, issued a recall. Purina did not issue a recall. Instead, they issued a voluntary withdrawal, telling pet owners the problem was due to regulatory inconsistencies and the Wagon Train jerky treats are safe to feed as directed. The year following the Purina Wagon Train jerky treat withdrawal in 2014, Purina initiated a lawsuit against competitor Blue Buffalo and published the website petfoodhonesty.com. Purina stated on this website, "At Purina, we believe that honesty is the most important ingredient in the relationship between pet owners and their pet food company. That is why we have undertaken our lawsuit, and it is why we established a website, petfoodhonesty.com, where pet owners can learn the truth." That was May 14th, 2014, and the honesty Purina was referencing in this website was with competitor Blue Buffalo. However, just a year earlier, Purina was less than honest with the FDA and pet owners regarding many reports of sick and dying pets linked to its Beneful dog food. During the FDA investigation of 3 Purina Beneful manufacturing plants, testing revealed 6 samples tested above allowable level for, let's see if I can get this word right, cyanuric acid. Did I say that right? I have no idea. And amylide, which is melamine. Melamine, remember the melamine debacle? Yeah. And 6 samples collected contained ethoxyquin. However, the additive was not indicated on the product labeling. During the same inspections, and Purina refused to provide FDA what routine contamination testing the company performed on pet foods, refused to provide the actual content or weights of individual ingredients that went into the implicated lots. FDA inspections at the time also found one plant in Edmond, Oklahoma, does not have a written protocol for handling complaints. When lawsuits were filed against Purina regarding sick and dead pets believed to be linked to their Beneful pet food, the company provided CBS News this statement. "We would like to reassure you that there are no quality issues with Beneful. Like other pet foods, Beneful is occasionally the subject of social media-driven misinformation. Beneful is a high-quality, nutritious food enjoyed by millions of happy, healthy dogs each year. You can continue to feed Beneful with complete confidence. In 2015, Purina termed the reports of sick pets linked to their pet food as social media-driven misinformation. In 2024, Purina termed reports of sick and dead pets linked to their pet food as false statements trying to create chaos and distrust. Things haven't really changed now, have they? So, of course, Susan's article goes on to let us know that report issues. If you or anyone you know feel that the pet food you're feeding has caused illness, please report it to the FDA. And there are protocols that Dr. Judy Morgan has posted requesting pet parents do, such as keeping as much of the food as you can, keeping the bag the food came in because we need the lot number, storing it. I believe the current recommendation, I will double check this, is to store it in the freezer. But again, I'll double check that. And if you feel compelled to provide any of the food to, whether it's the brand or anyone else, only send them a sample of it. Don't send them everything you have. Make sure you're keeping the bulk of it. Report it to the FDA and take the survey. So there is a survey that Dr. Judy Morgan has available. Again, I will post all of these links in my stories once we're done with today's live, because there's so much value in having all of this information. And I don't want any of your pets to be sick. I don't want any pets ever to be sick, quite honestly. It's really, really sad when a food that we trust makes pets sick. I think it's possibly even sadder when a food, and I say we, I actually don't include myself in that we for this particular company, but that's my opinion. It's sadder when they don't take complaints seriously. And there are enough complaints that they absolutely should, in my opinion, absolutely should be taken seriously. And the very least we can do is fill out the survey. Of course, if your pet is sick, the very first thing you want to do is make sure that they are getting veterinary care. Have to throw that in just in case anybody needs that reminder. But if your pet is sick, please make sure they are getting veterinary care. And yeah, it is. Thank you, Mary, for being here. It is very concerning. What was I going? Oh, I was going to try to find the latest graphic from Dr. Judy Morgan, if I can, on the brands that pet parents are reporting illnesses from. So I think January 12th currently is the last graphic. We should have some updates later this week. As of January 12th, 2024, the graphic that Dr. Judy Morgan posted, it says, pet parent consumer reports of bloody diarrhea, vomiting, lethargy, and food refusal. These pet parents are feeding Purina, Royal Canin, Pure Balance, Merrick, Instinct, Stella and Chewy's, Origin, Organics, Taste of the Wild, Hills, and Acana. So let's see here. Julie, do you know if Stella and Chewy's? Yes. Stella and Chewy's is on the list to watch. It's sad and concerning. If it's something you're feeding, I would suggest all lines. So all lines of Purina, all lines of Stella and Chewy's. I would suggest looking at other reputable brands. The Facebook group Saving Pets One Pet at a Time, and @ is the @ symbol, is the group that people are going to currently to report sick pets from pet food. And there is also a graphic that is in the pin posts of that group of current recommended brands that changes. The more data that comes in, the more pet parents that are reporting sick and ill animals. Again, both dogs and cats. This is just a constantly changing thing. So, in my opinion, the absolute best thing to do is to learn about the brands as much as you can. And I know that's not possible for everyone all the time. We have busy lives. We're working. We have families. For me, it's smaller companies that are transparent, that are, as transparent as they can be, right? That in my preference are not using any synthetics to balance out their diets. Kayla, should we stop feeding right away? If so, how do we prevent stomach issues when switching so quickly? So, yes, I personally, this is just my opinion, do recommend switching right away. And the thing is, I kind of mentioned this at the very, very beginning, is that, we've been taught to be scared of switching foods and that digestive upset will happen. And sometimes it will. And sometimes it is less risky to have a dog or a cat have a little bit of GI upset from switching the food for a couple of days versus what could potentially happen if we don't switch the food. If it's a food that is or could potentially make your pet sick. That said, and I know Isabel and I talked about this, I think we talked about it last week, that there are some things we can do like slippery elm that can help ease digestive upset in our pets, adding in additional fiber like a canned pumpkin. Again, all of these are very general recommendations because individual pets might do better with one thing versus the other. Some animals might have a pumpkin sensitivity. You could also do a cooked sweet potato and give them some sweet potato. It's also, in my opinion, if you have an otherwise healthy adult animal, you can switch them to a bland diet for a couple of days and then start adding in some of the new food. So when I say a bland diet, I'm talking like cooked ground turkey and canned pumpkin or cooked sweet potato. And no, that's not a balanced diet, but fed to a healthy adult animal for just a couple of days isn't going to be an issue. And slowly start adding in some of the new food to that over a few days. That could also help alleviate some of the GI distress if your dog or cat is not great with switching foods. That's actually a sign that their gut isn't top notch. So we want to be working on their gut health anyway, if that's the case. Let's see, Julie, slippery elm is so much better than Flagyl and works so well. Yeah, I really like slippery elm. Thank you guys for joining, by the way. Let's see. I don't want to get your name wrong. My cat was on raw, was vomiting and diarrhea. Vet switched her to RC kibble. how can I choose healthier options? So it really kind of depends on what was going on with your cat with the vomiting and diarrhea. Um, it it could have been that oh, hello, there's Isabel. Let's see if we can get her in here. It could have been that it was just taking a hello, hello. I don't, it's not bringing you into Instagram for some reason. Let me see if I can. It could have been that your cat was having trouble. I don't know how long they were on the raw food or what kind of raw food it was. It could have been that they were having a little bit of trouble transitioning. It could have been that, not all raw foods are made the same. It could have been a recipe that didn't agree with them. But I would say you could. Oh, view request. Go live with. Okay. You could try freeze-dried raw and see if that works better for your cat. I still recommend hydrating the freeze-dried raw. Hello! I cannot hear you.
I know. Something's up.
Let's see. I don't know if anybody on Instagram can hear Isabel. Let me
How
know.
about now? No?
No, can't hear you. Cannot. Yes, Mary. Oh, okay. So I guess people on Instagram can hear you. I just can't hear you on StreamYard.
Hi. How is everyone? I look like
Let's
disheveled because I literally just
see.
ran from a
Let me
million
try
places.
this.
I'm in Spain with my sister, and we were running a bunch of errands, and time got away from me.
How about that? Now I think I can hear. You.
Where am I connected to?
But if I do that, then I'm not going to be able to. You're not going to be able to hear me on StreamYard. We're going to try to get this tech stuff figured out because Isabel is joining us all the way from Spain.
Yeah. Hola. All right. So you over here, you have your microphone off?
So I just turned it off because I had to turn my volume on Instagram to be able to hear you because I couldn't hear you here.
But I can't hear you over here, but that's fine.
Oh, wait. Hey, let me do this. Okay. Is that?
I made it. Yes, I hear you. For some reason, though, my computer doesn't want to connect.
Okay. Is that better? Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, great. So, yeah, I actually have gone through. I kind of read off one of Susan Thixton's blogs about Purina's history with discounting online rumors. So that was fun. And yeah, so then people were just talking, some people were asking about different brands and different foods. The last graphic that Dr. Judy posted was on January 12th. So that's the one that we're continuing to go with until she updates it, probably later this week. And yeah, so it's kind of sad to see some of the, I know everybody was so sad to see Stella and Chewy's on the list.
Yes. And it's not surprising, really, because it could just be like one ingredient, like it just could be one thing that went wrong. So it's really not surprising. And I don't know if you've already discussed this, but I'll risk in saying, like, this is not about demonizing any brands. This is just about how these things work and why it's so important for there to be third-party testing, which there is not. Why it's so important for there to be more regulation in this industry, because these things can happen. They can happen across a ton of brands. And by the time that action is taken, unfortunately, dogs die or cats die. And that is the problem with having an industry that's so poorly regulated, is that sure, at some point there will be action, but at what cost? So that is, it's not about demonizing. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Like nobody wins here. You know, I hate the idea that like people are literally like creating this narrative where like Dr. Judy Morgan is selling her own brand because that is not what's happening. Like nobody wins. Dr. Judy Morgan
Mhm.
is paying out of pocket for food testing. Purina is gonna, you know, inevitably lose face. No matter what they do, they're gonna lose face. People's pets have died. People have trauma related to this now. There's nobody's winning here.
Yeah.
So to create like this narrative where it's like, you know, being done on purpose or, you know, just rumors is just so unnecessary because it's such a tragic situation and it is inevitable under the current legislation that
Yeah.
allows these things to not be tested, not be at a certain level. You know, the quality control in the US for most things, like the FDA is not somebody I'd like really trust with anything, you know, unfortunately. So all of these things, like these things are poorly regulated as a norm. And there, this is not, it's not just pet food. There's a ton of stuff in
Yeah.
the United States that needs better oversight. So I think it's so funny to see the commentary on social media where people are literally going to bat for these pet food companies like they're on the payroll. Like you're
Yeah.
not on the payroll. Like you've purchased their product for years? Okay, that doesn't mean that they're infallible.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that their product is perfect and will always be perfect. So we have to be willing to just flex when things come up when we're using commercial dog food because it's just kind of like the nature of the beast.
Yeah. And it's like who who are you being loyal to? Because these huge companies, and let me see if I can find this graphic of who owns your pet food brand. Let's see,
I'm
here we
actually
go.
going live just now. I just went
Oh,
live on Facebook and YouTube. I'm
oh,
so sorry I'm late. Greetings everybody on there from Spain and from Georgetown, Texas. That's where Jessica is.
yes,
But Jessica was on time. I was late. I was running errands with my sister. I've been given the okay to share that she had a baby, and that's why I'm here. So he is the cutest thing you've ever seen in your whole life. He's like a little elf on the shelf. He's so cute. And I'm helping her for the next 3 weeks. So next week, we're not doing anything today. We had doctor's appointments and things that we needed to get for the baby. And I shared a picture of me having lunch here. Having lunch with wine is not a big deal. We did that, but then we have other things to do. So that's why I ran so late. So I apologize for everybody who was looking forward to starting earlier. But here we are, and we are talking about
kibble
potentially. Have you
potentially.
discussed have you discussed the silent recall conversation?
I have not, no. But really quickly before I'll let you talk about that. So, who owns your pet food brand? Nestle is, let's see, $19.38 billion in earnings in 2022. Mars, 19.5 billion in 2022. So Colgate Palmolive, and those are the two biggest. Colgate Palmolive is the next biggest at 3.7 billion. So Mars and Nestle are the huge players, and they're these are not like family run companies. These are what is that I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for?
Conglomerates,
Yes, these are huge conglomerates that have boards of people that,
international, yes.
yes, that are like, there is zero reason to have loyalty to these huge conglomerates, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah,
In my
agree. I agree with you.
opinion.
There's not one brand that I would go so hard for. Like I literally, when you and I were texting, I was thinking to myself, like, there are a lot of brands that I love and
Yeah.
that I am loyal to. But there are none that after seeing some kind of sign that something's up that I would go to bat for so hard. And I don't really understand why there's such a misplaced loyalty to this conglomerate when fellow pet parents are telling you that they've lost their pet potentially from a tainted dog food, which is not really that uncommon, or cat food.
Yeah.
It's not that uncommon.
It's
Recalls are
not.
not uncommon.
Not at all.
So like I don't get it. It doesn't compute for me. I think that because people are like, oh, it's against Purina specifically. Purina is one of the major players. So volume wise, if there's a problem, it's going to affect more people, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
that is really just a game of numbers. If you have a multi-billion-dollar company versus a million-dollar company, of course they're selling more products. So they're if there is a problem, we're going to see it in that company before we see it in the smaller company. Not that it's not happening
Yes.
in the smaller company, but
Yes.
it's a matter of numbers and volume. So I
Yes.
don't get it. I really don't. I don't trust that. I mean, it's not that I'm like anti-government. I'm not any of that, but I don't necessarily, go to bat for the FDA either. I recognize that there are vested interests involved, and I don't go to bat for any conglomerate, not in this industry, not in any industry, because at the end of the
No.
day, they are for-profit businesses with vested interests. And you and I talked about how potentially it would be cheaper for them to just pay for veterinary costs and cremation costs than it would be to pull product off of their shelves. So
Yes.
cheaper to just pay out without really asking people to jump through so many hoops, because I don't feel like they're asking for that many hoops to be jumped through right now. From
Mhm.
what I've read in many pet owners like testimonials about what happened and that they contacted this person and that person. I know Chewy's doing a lot of refunding. They're not really asking for that much stuff. So obviously they're more open than their online rumors post would suggest.
Yeah.
But it's still cheaper to do all that because at the end of the day, they want those billions to still sell. And
Mm-hmm.
they'll do damage control with whomever contacts them, which is going to be a lot smaller than the people who are still buying.
Absolutely. And this isn't exclusive, like Isabel said, this is not exclusive of the pet food industry. This is any industry. Like the vehicle that you are driving,
Yeah,
they're going to do the exact same thing. They're going to run the cost analysis of having to pay out claims versus doing a recall on a line of vehicles. And that's how they make their decision on whether they do a recall or not. This isn't, and that's just one example that I can think of, but that's how the world works. And being aware of that, it's not me being all, miss skeptical over here. It's just an
no.
awareness of how the world works so that we can make our decisions appropriately.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And, the next thing we wanted to talk about, and again, I apologize for having missed
No,
everything that
please.
Jessica shared. I'll be sure to catch up when we log off. But, there are people saying, there are consumers saying that they can't find their specifically, because again, this conversation centers a lot around Purina just because of volume, but that they can't find their Purina products anymore. Like they're gone off the shelves. Or I've seen where people are saying, like, I went to the grocery store and the only thing that was on the shelf was Purina because nobody's buying it,
Mm,
right? Because like people are aware and they're like scared to buy it. But in some cases, people who've had like auto ship set up
mm-hmm.
or subscription set up are getting cancellations because that particular product is out of stock. Some people are describing that as a silent recall, where they kind of take things off the shelves. They don't take responsibility. And again, this is not just a specific brand. This is something that is practiced in many industries, I'm sure. And this is basically just so that they can put an end to the illnesses without having to take like full public responsibility. But, again, I don't believe that anybody does these things on purpose. So like I'm not here saying that anybody's the devil, because these things do happen. It's just par for the course with an unregulated industry. But again, it's damage control. Like, what can I do to mitigate the issue, the problem, without calling attention to my reputation, to my brand? And I do believe that the more we see these out of stock situations or testimonials or experiences, the more I think they are taking action. We just may not know about it. Like, it may not be something that they do through their PR team or, through the FDA.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know, um, because they're not going to tell you, right? Like it's complete speculation, on anyone's part right now to say that they are or are not pulling. And it could also be that companies, store owners are making these decisions as
Right.
well, and we just don't know it.
Or
Um,
that the supplier noticed a problem and now there
yeah,
really is a shortage in the product because the supplier
right.
has eliminated an ingredient. So there's a lot, again, like, we talk about dog food as formulations for a reason because they are formulated with a ton of ingredients. So if one ingredient is not, they can't source it, then they
Yeah,
can't make that formulation unless they find a different one, and that takes time. So there again, it's speculation, but it's not to demonize any brand. These things happen. These things can happen. Mistakes can happen. Like, that's just, and it's one of those things that kind of teaches me. And I do like 50-50 more or less with kibble and raw freeze-dried dog food for my dog, and my cat is on almost fully freeze-dried food, the same one. But I feel like it only confirms that splitting food is probably the best way to go. Because that way, if you have an issue with one of your foods, you still have your dog or cat accustomed to eating something else. So it's almost like a really good lesson in diversifying your pet food and not putting all your eggs in one basket.
yeah, absolutely. Like I hope, and like it's the only thing getting me through really with this is just the hope that I have that any pet parent who even if they're not feeding a brand that's currently on the list is like, oh man, like this could happen, and
It can.
like let's get something else on board. Let's rotate more. Like even if you're whatever is going on in your life, the only thing you feel like you can feed is a kibble product. If that's all you're going to feed, still rotate brands,
Yeah.
rotate proteins. Um, it's not like, it's been shoved down our throat so much that we find one food for our dog or a cat, whatever it is, and keep them on it for the rest of their lives. That no, absolutely not. Like I'm not going to eat
No.
a bowl of Cheerios for every meal for every day for the rest of my life. That's not going to happen. No,
Right.
no. Why would I do that to my pets?
Right. And that is pretty much the equivalent of a lot of these dogs' foods. Like, I remember writing a column for the Alexandria Times when I first started writing in 2010, where it was like, your dog's weight issue is your fault, right? Because, like, they're not opening the fridge and making themselves a peanut butter and, like, bacon sandwich. So it's really your fault. Let's take
Oh,
responsibility.
that sounds
But also, it
good.
was like the kibble is like the equivalent of a bag of Doritos in some ways, right? So, like, really, truly, like, in many cases, we are feeding them, and I feed kibbles, so like, and I recognize that that's like where we are and that's what we can do right now, and I try to put fresh foods in and all that. But at the end of the day, there has to be a recognition that this is not optimum food. This is not optimum quality. This is not, we get what we can. I love Susan Thixton's the list on the truth about pet food. If you're trying to upgrade, that's where I would say go, go, go. But at the end of the day, we're feeding our pets Doritos for their whole lives. Like, even if you were eating Doritos or Cheerios all of your life, you'd want to switch maybe to the Dorito from the Cheerio, or from the Cheerio to the
Yeah.
Dorito, because it is also boring, and diversifying food is always good for everybody. It's good for everything, just to keep things new for your pet.
Yeah.
So I have a friend who was very skeptical about this whole thing, and I think she remains skeptical, and I don't think she'll even believe it until there's a recall, which there may never be. But she told me me that she was at ease because she mixes three different types of food. So I think it's all commercial. I think it's some kibble, some, maybe some canned stuff. But she was more comfortable because she hadn't put all her eggs in one basket. And, she said, maybe I'll stop with the Purina brand or whatever brand she said for the time being. But at least I know my dog can do the other two, and I'll keep on top of the news. And I do think that that's really a smart thing to do for pet parents that are feeding kibble. And for cats, alternate your canned food. It's really easy to do that. Cats don't really react as poorly as some dogs do to changes in their food. And obviously it depends on your cat, and sometimes they're finicky, but there are ways to get them, used to a different food and keeping it. If you start from day one diversifying the food, it's a lot easier to keep it moving rather than if now after 10 years you're like, hey cat, you've been on this for 10 years, now I'm going to introduce something completely different. Like, yes, of course your cat is a creature of habit and they're going to take a minute to like say okay, but there are tips online. I know the Two Crazy Cat Ladies have always given tips on how to introduce other foods. I'm sure Jessica has tons of tips for if you're going from like a commercial food to something more fresh, or how to make it more fresh, how to make it more appealing. But diversifying the food, I think this is what this is about. This is about not putting all our eggs in one basket as pet parents.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I hope it kind of, every time something like this happens, it's like, please, like more people need to come over. Like leave the dark side is what I like, just leave the dark side. But just being aware of what's going on, like that's the biggest thing. Like, and that's what recalls do, on like a mass scale. And again, like Isabel said, we don't know if we're going to even get to that point of a recall, but on a mass scale, it wakes people up to, oh my gosh, like there's a problem. And so if we can be proactive with solutions for people to find when they go online, like that's I think the best case scenario.
Yes. Yeah, and there's a website. It's not Susan's website. It's Dog Food Advisor. Dog Food Advisor allows you to get on their mailing list for pet food recalls. So if there is an actual recall, which again, there are a lot of steps before we get there, but if there is a recall, and sometimes it's literally like, like Victor in the fall. I don't remember what the ingredient was, but it wasn't like this dramatic where dogs were, or cats and dogs were dying, and then pet parents kind of found the missing link or like the correlation. This was a situation where I think that the brand itself went to FDA and like they did what they needed to do and they did a recall. And if you're feeding that brand, like I feed Victor and I get mine from Chewy, and I never heard from Chewy, right? Like I never heard, because you assume that like with your car, Toyota or Kia or BMW, they're going to send you a letter that says there's been a recall. And so you assume you're going to get notified. In this case, I did not get notified, and I don't think that my product was implicated. So maybe that's why I did not get notified. But I did get an email from Dog Food Advisor advising that this brand was under a recall. So that gave me the opportunity to dig a little deeper. So if you do feed kibble, I think signing up for their newsletter is a great way to just kind of cover yourself. Obviously, keep following us, keep following Dr. Judy Morgan, keep following all of these raw feeders like Jessica, nutritionists that are going to tell you like, this is what I do, these are the tips I have, but also if something comes across their radar, they're going to share it. So obviously follow people, because this is the quickest way to get your news in many ways. But I do think that that's like a really good way to get peace of mind for pet parents that feed kibble or commercial foods. It's kibble and wet foods, and anything commercial really. They'll send you an email, an automatic email, if there is a pet food recall. So I think that's really a smart way to just cover yourself, cover your pet. My husband is commenting. Did you see my husband comment on Facebook? I always thought of diversity trying different foods versus mixing different foods. Such a good idea so that your pet is always used to whatever you have. Yeah, so like you don't have to go from one completely different brand to another. There's a lot of times you can do a very slow mix in and then go to the other. There's a lot of ways to play with it. Obviously, you want to make sure that you're feeding according to the label. So like when you're mixing foods, you need to make sure that the portions are good. Jessica has some tips or has some concerns regarding mixing like really good whole foods with synthetic vitamins, because if you feed them at the same time, they might be competing against each other.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a little bit more education and checks and balances I feel like you need to follow with mixing and diversifying, but the option is there. Like I think that long gone are the days where we have to feed this one bag of food, forever till death
Yeah.
do us part, right?
Yes.
Like I feel like long gone are those days.
I know. And that's the thing. Like, you see pet parents post on social media, they've been feeding the same food for 10 years. Like, oh, my heart, right? Like,
And
that poor baby.
they're the ones that are having the hardest time with this, right? They're like,
Yeah.
what do I do?
Yeah.
Because it really is like daunting at this point. Like that's
Yeah.
one thing you didn't think you were going into 2024 thinking about, but now you are.
Absolutely. Yes. And yeah, but even if you are mixing fresh food with synthetic vitamin, I mean, I'd still rather you do that than, we can worry about the rest later. Like for
Yeah.
now, let's mix things
Yeah.
in and get it all, get everybody transitioned and up to speed. And with cats, yeah, it can, like, I feel you with cat. Like I have 4 senior cats. I hear you. I feel you. It is not easy with them. And if I had known when they were kittens, I would have done right by them from the start, but I didn't know. So, I feel like I'm in the same shoes as a lot of pet parents when it comes to cats because yeah, I did switch them over completely to canned food maybe 6 or 7 years ago. Now, so they haven't had kibble in quite a while, but even trying to switch them to healthier foods has really been challenging for me. I get whatever freeze-dried foods I can into them, and some of them will eat some, and some of them will eat different ones. So I like my house looks like a freaking pet store, okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, because I'm just trying to do the best I can for them, and I get that not everybody can do that, but I think hopefully we can have more. It is certainly more difficult to find commercially available foods for cats that do not contain synthetic vitamins and
Yeah.
minerals. Mary, yes, hardest transition I've ever done from rad cat to homemade. Let me tell you, I actually like that when rad cat was closing their doors. Within like the year before that was when I found rad cat, and my cats were actually eating it, and that was so difficult. Oh my goodness, I get it. That was so difficult because finding, and if you are familiar with rad cat, they were doing raw food for cats, and the big distinction with them was, if I remember correctly, they were using eggshell calcium versus grinding up bones. So it was so much more palatable for cats. So getting like it was a whole really unfair thing, in my opinion, that happened. They had to close their doors and stop producing. It really was difficult for people to transition. So, yeah, I feel you, Mary, on that one. But yeah, it is with cats. And I think, I think I don't remember if I said this when you were on or not. The same thing for dogs that I mentioned earlier, we can do with our cats. So for dogs, I was saying, because somebody asked about transitioning and not having GI upset or trying to avoid GI upset. And I was like, well, what we can do for an otherwise healthy adult dog certainly is to feed them a bland diet for a few days and then slowly add in the new food to the bland diet. So like a cooked turkey with either pumpkin or sweet potato, and that's a bland diet to me.
Mm-hmm.
And we can do something similar for our cats. They depend, cats are so much more like aware of texture in their food that you can try like cooking up some ground turkey, but I don't know if all cats will be okay with that texture. Um, you can also cook, you can just boil a chicken breast. And I have done this to where like I will boil some chicken breast for my cats and then take some of the juice, some of the water that I boiled it in and put that in a blender or use an immersion blender to blend that up into like a loose pate almost. That is a texture that all of my cats are good with.
Yeah.
Um, and so take something bland like that for a couple of days. They're gonna love it, right? I mean, it's a fresh piece of chicken that you've cooked up, right? It's like, ooh, like a really yummy treat for
Yeah.
them. And uh, slowly add in some of the new food that you're trying to introduce, like really, really slowly for cats. But
Yeah. So they're like
yeah,
shocked by the change in the flavor,
mm-hmm.
yeah, and texture. Yeah, it
Yeah,
can
and
be
if,
difficult, but I mean, in this case, it's like I'd rather they go hungry. Like in this case, right? Like in the case where there may be something toxic in the food you're feeding. For me, I'd rather they go hungry. I'll order some Bear's Bites and give them some chicken hearts for a day
yeah,
until, figure something out. But I mean, for me,
yeah. I mean,
take that chance of illness out of the equation and go from there.
right. Well, that was the other thing. Like the couple of days potentially of GI upset, and this I think does happen more so in dogs than cats, like you were saying earlier. That potential for a couple of days of GI upset, in my opinion, and this is something you're going to have to gauge for yourself, for your pet, in my opinion, it is so much less risky to go through that couple of days of GI upset versus the alternative if you happen to have a food that
Yeah.
is tainted or potentially tainted. Um, yeah, it's just, oh my goodness. But for cats, yeah, I don't. The thing is with cats, they will starve themselves. Dogs won't. Dogs will eventually eat whatever you give them, and cats won't.
Yeah.
So you do kind of have to be a little careful, a little more careful with our cats. But yeah, it's just,
Well,
it's
well, and
it's a lot.
also what I'm seeing, and I'm sure Jessica, you may have already mentioned this, is that people now are starting to open new bags of food,
Yeah,
right? After hearing all this, and they've been like, "Oh, my pet's fine on this food." And so now people are starting to open new bags of food and see a reaction from their pet that's like,
yeah,
right? They like go up to the bowl, they sniff,
yeah,
they kind of take a minute. And that could be a sign that something's up. If a lot of people are like, my dog has been fine, and I've been feeding him the same bag since November. Okay, well, again, it could just be some formulations. It could be some bags within some product within that formulation. So just stay on it, right? Like this is not a
yeah.
put it in the auto feeder and walk away. This is
Mm-hmm.
not one of those times you want to do that. This is one of those times where you want to take a pause, watch your pet eat, see if they have any reaction, note it if they do, see it, don't just let your pet out in the yard. Go with them, see what their number twos look like. There are things that we can do that are just kind of like checks and balances in
Mm-hmm.
under these situations. And honestly, I personally do that always. Like I want to see my pet eat. I want to see my pet's poo.
Mm-hmm.
It is just I was a professional pet sitter for 12 plus years, and you know what I did every day? I told people what their pet's poo looked like. And I think that they appreciated that because they at least had a little notebook or an update in our software that told them that on Tuesday they pooped midday and it looked all good, right? So then
Yeah.
Wednesday, if they started to have upset stomach and they needed to go to the vet by Friday, then they knew that Tuesday was the last day they had a good poo. So these things are good to have. Like you've talked about diaries, food journals for your pets. Poo journals are a good idea. taking that extra second to watch your pet eat, make sure that they finished everything, never just like throw medicine on the kibble and hope that they took it. Those little tiny extra steps are really truly like those are where the money is made, I guess, like where the magic is made, because that's where you can notice that if you start to know your pet's routine, when they eat, how quickly they normally eat, how they usually receive their food, how their stomach usually operates, then you know when there's a discrepancy. But if your pet's like kind of just like living, I've seen these on TikTok where it's like this beautiful piece of furniture and you fill it with kibble, and then it just kind of like you like walk by and just like open a little window and out comes the kibble. Like this is not the time to do stuff like that. This is the time to portion it out, read the label, find out, keep the bag, do your due diligence.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just have to say, because I can't not say it, like, please don't use those big, like you're filling it up with a ton of kibble at one time, or like you said earlier, somebody's been feeding the same bag of kibble since November, like that.
Exactly.
Oh my Lord, I just want, please, like if you do buy bags that last you longer than a couple of weeks, put them put them in the freezer,
Yeah.
please. Like I know that freezer space is a premium. I do, I
Or
get that.
buy
I
a smaller
buy
bag. Like for me, like I
a
have
smaller
four
bag.
dogs to one dog, right? So yeah, like
Yes.
our 40-pound bag is no longer what we need for one dog, right?
Yes.
So buy the smaller bag. Yes, it's a little bit more expensive, but
Yeah.
you're the you wouldn't drink a wine that's been open for 2 months because the oxygen has ruined the wine. The same thing happens with your dog food, and
Yeah.
especially if you're removing it from the bag that it's meant to be in, right? Like if you
Yeah.
have to
Don't,
freeze it in
please.
the bag.
Yes. Yeah. Don't, like, please don't remove it from the bag if at all possible. Even those containers, pet food containers, they are not designed for you to dump the bag
Airtight.
into.
They're
Yeah, they are.
airtight. Like it's not. That's
No.
like for 4 days. Like that's like the cookies you baked. You
Yeah.
put them in an airtight container for four
Yeah.
days, right? Like same thing. Yeah.
Yes. And and that really is primarily because there is a good chance by the time you get that bag that fat is already oxidized, but certainly once you open that bag, it right
Yeah.
then it starts to oxidize the fat. And that's, we nobody wants to eat rancid fat. It first of all is nasty, is gross, but also like it causes all kinds of havoc in the body and creates inflammation, and as if kibble isn't inflammatory enough. But please don't. Please
Yeah, and
don't.
also our pets are super sensitive, right? Like so
Yeah.
like I'm sure we've all been somewhere where we're having food and we're like, this isn't
Hmm.
quite right, right? Like, um our pets are much more sensitive.
Yes.
They smell things that we will never smell. They take that food in with every sense. And sometimes like Labradors or Beagles, like they don't even take the time to smell it but they'll feel the consequences later. So when they have taken that step back, that's a sign that something's up with your dog's food or your pet's food. And I think that's something that I keep seeing, and people noticed it and kind of ignored it. And, because we're not taught to
Yeah.
really listen to our pets and like really read their
Yeah.
body language, I feel like I want us to say, like, what is my pet telling me at the bowl?
Hmm.
What do they need? What do they not need? What do they like? What do they not like? And it's, sometimes I feel like even kids, we say like they're picky, or they only want to eat like junk. And it's like maybe they just don't like something, and we got to trust why they don't like it, right? Like
Hmm.
maybe they're trying to tell us something. So take that time. Um, is all kibble bad? Well, I believe that not Dr. Susan Thixon has maybe two kibbles brands on her list in 2024. I just downloaded the list. It's $10 minimum donation, and you go to thetruthaboutpetfood.com, and I believe she has two kibbles. I literally downloaded it on the plane to Spain. So I have not looked at the list, but it is definitely a good place to start. The vast majority of kibble is not ideal. There is feed grade kibble and food grade ingredients in kibble. And so the better quality kibble, obviously the better for your pet. But the reality is it's a dead food, right? Like it's kind of like saying that we only need to eat protein powders every single meal. Like that's not ideal, right? Because it is a processed powder, even if it's a great protein powder, maybe once a day, maybe as a meal replacement, maybe before working out. But like if you told me you were eating protein powder 24/7 for 365 days, I'd be like,
Yeah.
ooh, same, same
Yeah.
kind of, same thing, same hesitation there.
Yeah. I mean, and I want to meet pet parents where they're at as much as I can. So, yeah, Susan's list is a wonderful, wonderful resource. Dr. Judy's list is much shorter. So I mentioned that earlier, I think before you came on, and I'll post a link to her list in my stories at some point today. But yeah, you know, it's not an ideal food for our pets. It's something that, granted, a lot of pet parents rely on, and that,
Practical.
that's where you are. And, yeah, like, but there are, if you, even if you are, like Isabel does, even if you are, there are things you can do. You can do, part kibble diet and a part fresh food diet, or freeze dried raw food diet, something along those lines. So you just kind of have to figure out what you're able to do, and kind of work backwards from there.
Yes.
Yeah.
The good thing about Dr. Judy Morgan has a list. It's great. It's a great list, but it's like just like the names of the foods or whatever. So, Susan Dixon has like a cost breakdown
Mm-hmm.
per meal or per pound, or per like serving. So that is really helpful if you are on a budget, right? So like I look at that list and I don't even look at the name. I go straight to like the budget line and I say, okay, this is way too rich for my dog. And then I find something that's within my budget. So if you are budget conscious, I love that list for that reason. And again, it's like, we talked about this, I think it was last week. You can get sardines, you can, do eggs, you can
Mm-hmm.
do things that are relatively, I know eggs had their moment in the sun where they were like a luxury food. I think we're
Right.
getting back to somewhat normal egg levels, but depending on where you are, you can supplement your pet's food with some fresh foods. And there's so much about that online that you can learn about, and things that you can do, the right, the wrong, the tips, the best practices. So you're not held to kibble 100% of the time. When I added, I'll tell you what my dog eats. My dog eats green juju, beef, and Victor Senior Healthy Weight, because that's what my veterinarian recommended. But honestly, I wanted to like spruce it up, and I did. And she often gets like canned pumpkin and some other like meal toppers that are really natural, like a lamb meal topper from a good brand, whatever. And when I started doing this, there was no transition. There was no, like, it was a slow transition. Like, I just kind of started removing some of the kibble, adding some of the fresh foods, right? Like, just balancing things out. But there was never any stomach upset. Sometimes my husband, who is not as diligent as I am when it comes to pet feeding, I put all the goodies in there and he just like puts the kibble in the bowl. She'll still eat it. So like she's an easy dog. She definitely likes when I feed her better. I can see that the excitement is greater when I'm in the kitchen serving her than when he's in there, because I spruce it up real nice. But she still eats the other stuff. And even if he only feeds her the kibble, we're running out the door, he just feeds her the kibble, she does fine. So again, it's, we've been kind of conditioned to think that it has to be one formulation, one brand, and that if we do anything differently, it's going to end up in like this, like, I like to say a situation where you're going to be like dealing with like diarrhea and vomiting. It's not always that intense. So just, if you have a dog with a sensitive stomach, obviously take extra precautions. Slippery elm is a great thing to like add during the transition, but don't be so scared that you kind of paralyze yourself because of the potential for a stomach upset.
Yeah. And the reality is, if you are going from one food to a higher quality food, or adding in more fresh foods, or going completely from a kibble diet to a completely fresh food diet, you you likely will see some sort, whether your dog feels bad or not, you likely will see changes in their stool just from the body like flushing out all of the gunk,
Yeah.
you know? That's actually a benefit. Like, I know we look at it as like, oh my God, I don't want to deal with, with the
Yes,
diarrhea or whatever it is, or the like
exactly.
mucus on the stool. But that's actually a benefit of switching to a fresh food diet,
Right.
is getting all of that junk and inflammation and out of the body, and cleaning up the mucus layer in the gut. And like, it's a benefit. So maybe we can start looking at it that way.
Exactly. It's so true. We're so concerned. Like, I remember being a first time pet parent when Titan was 4 months old, came home, and I was at the vet constantly because he had like an upset stomach, right? And like, he was a puppy and he had changed from like a farm situation to a suburban living situation, new food, all that. And I was like so panicked. And now my sister just had a baby and he has like, an upset stomach, and I'm like, it's normal.
Yes.
The baby. He
Right.
doesn't have a developed microbiota, right? Like, all these things to me are normal now. But like, why is it any different with any other species? Like, as puppies, they're going to develop issues because they're learning new foods. As seniors, their gut flora is going to change too. So there might be some, just even if you keep them in the same on the same diet, there might be changes. So we need to like stop being so scared of a little
Yeah.
stomach upset. Like, it's,
Yeah.
we get stomach, and we keep about our
Keep
day.
going. I know, right? Okay, so if I choose fresh food diet, how do I make sure pet gets all the proper nutrients? So, a couple of ways. There are commercially available fresh food diets, and if they are, they'll they'll list that they're balanced to AAFCO standards, meets minimum AAFCO requirements for a balanced diet for dogs, cats, whatever it is. And I believe, again, when we get off, well, at some point today, I will post in my stories the link to Dr. Judy's recommended brands. And I'm like 99.9% sure everything on her list is balanced to AAFCO, meet minimum AAFCO requirements. If it's not, it will say that it is for supplemental feeding or something along those lines. But if you're trying to do a fresh food diet at home and make it yourself, that is trickier. You, not because you can't do it, you absolutely can do it. I would just be kind of leery of recipes that you find online unless you know where they're coming from. So Dr. Judy has a good resource on her website, and she has books. In fact, like her Yin and Yang Nutrition for Dogs book, I believe those recipes are designed to rotate to get balance, if I'm not mistaken. But so, like, make sure if you do buy a book that you're reading everything in the book so that you don't just like rush to the recipes and think they're balanced, right? Because I'm pretty sure those are designed for rotational feeding. But there are recipes available. You can work with your veterinarian likely won't be able to help you with balanced recipes, but a veterinary nutritionist can, pet health coaches often can, canine nutritionists can. So just, if you find a recipe online, research who made the recipe, where it came from, that kind of thing. And also know that um, it is okay to balance over time if you have a healthy adult animal. So if you use like online feeding calculators and things like that, just make sure to rotate what you're using, the ingredients that you're using to create balance over generally a week. You would want to, make sure you get everything in within a week. But yeah, that's kind of a blanket
Yeah. You
generalized
have to make
recommendation.
a commitment, right?
Yeah.
This is the thing about, you have to make the commitment of staying on top of things. You don't just, meet with a canine nutritionist one time and not follow up. You don't just, kind of throw ingredients in that are not part of there's a commitment and there's a level of responsibility that goes with that. So that's the first step, I think, is recognizing whether you can afford to and whether you can really commit the time. And not only the time, but like that level of responsibility. Like, I'm doing this and I'm going to follow this person's recipe. I'm not going to just go willy-nilly. I forgot to go to the grocery store. I don't have eggs. I'm just going to, that there is
Yeah.
that. And obviously, like, there are many people who do this extremely well, and there are
Yeah.
a ton of pet parents who have done this so successfully. We used to feed raw, and we used to feed raw, homemade raw, and it was like a recipe that we followed from a trusted source, and it was fantastic. We stopped because now we have small children. I take care of my grandmother, all these things, so it's just too much. But it is totally doable. It is totally. Sometimes when you think about the amount of money you're spending on like a high quality kibble, sometimes it's almost the same, if not better, depending on where you can
Yeah.
source stuff from to feed raw, fresh foods. But again, you won't know that until you really do your due diligence and get in there. So
Yeah.
before you even take that on, just recognize whether or not it's a good time for you to take that on and how honest you're going to be when making the recipe. Because like there are people in my life that would say, I'm going to go raw and I'm going to make my own homemade. And I'd be like, awesome. And there are people in my life that I'd be like, please don't do that.
Right. Right. I know.
You're
Oh my
Please don't
gracious.
take that on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just, I don't know you, but just
Right.
and the thing is there are so many resources out there that it just if you have the right personality, the right drive, the right motivation, you're going to do it amazingly well. But if that's not something that's on your top of your priority list, it is hard to keep up with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, um, I know you joined late, but I've been on for a while, so
I know. She's like, I want to
I,
go.
I need to get
Hi everybody.
going.
Thanks for joining
I
us.
know.
Sorry I was late again.
Oh, I
Um,
know. No, 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 you're
Yeah,
good.
everybody was here. There's so many people. I'm so excited to see everybody. I will hopefully be on time next week if we're going to do this again. If you have any recommendations for topics we can cover, because I feel like unless there's an update, we've talked about
Yeah,
this particular thing
yeah,
ad nauseum now. So
right.
unless we'll look for some kind of cool news, some kind of new development in the pet industry, something like that. And if you have any recommendations, by all means, please let us know.
Yes, absolutely. I actually just got, I don't know if you saw Dr. Becker's email today. That was very interesting. Um,
I have
but
my email, so.
okay.
It is
Yeah,
it is 7:30 p.m. today, like right now where I'm at. So I
yeah,
have been out and about almost 7:30.
all
I've been
day.
out and about all day. I am doing the night shift, the baby care. So I'm up till almost 4 a.m. and then I sleep in until like my sister woke me up at 11 because we had an appointment. Until my sister lets me, and then we do it all over again. So it's I'm kind of all over the place, but I do want to discuss something new and fun. And
Yeah,
send me that email if
yeah,
you can.
yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, for participating, for asking questions, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.